Hey everybody, this is Christian Buckley, another episode of MVP Buzz Chat, and I'm here with Cameron Dwyer, and based out of, why don't you, introduce yourself and tell us where you're from.
Hi everyone, my name's Cameron Dwyer. I am a Microsoft MVP in Office Development. I'm based out of Sydney, Australia. In my day job, I am a CTO of a company based out of Australia. It's called One Place Solutions, and we do products in the Office 365 and SharePoint space. A lot of end user productivity tools.
Seeing you guys more and more at other events around the world too. Came across you guys a couple of years back down in Australia, New Zealand events, but saw you at the SharePoint Conference North America. You guys, was that a good event for you guys in May?
Sure. It was an interesting one, being a sort of Microsoft backing in a way for a SharePoint conference. We traditionally did the SharePoint conferences that Microsoft ran a few years back before they became the Ignite conferences. So I think we've been doing those now for probably 8 years. We've been doing the major Microsoft backed conferences in the US that are around SharePoint. So yeah, we're certainly trying to build our presence in the United States. We've got a lot of customers in the US. We've got a lot of customers throughout Europe as well. And obviously down here in the Asia Pac region as well. So we do get around. We attend the European SharePoint Conference as well. We'll be over there again.
That's right. Yep, Copenhagen in November. I'll be there.
Correct. Yes, they do put them in some great locations at European Conference. They move them around each year, which is really nice. The one last year in Dublin was quite good as well.
Yeah, it was my first time in Ireland. I really enjoyed it. I wish I could have spent more time. But I tell you that, so this is the second time it's been in Copenhagen. And I told Tracy this. It's like, I was hoping that it would be back in like Germany again, another city in Germany. But yeah, that's kind of where things started. So, but I've been every year to one of those. Well, Cameron, but tell me, so as an Office developer MVP, so kind of what's your area of focus? Like what do you, when you go out and present and talk and, kind of what are the topics that you're covering right now? Where are you passionate about? What topics?
Okay, well, probably the main two things that I'm interested in is the Office add-ins themselves. I've got a long history with Office add-ins, probably going back close to a decade now. Because I'm really focused on trying to drive end user productivity. We're trying to build tools that help the user as much as we can. And this started in the early days of SharePoint. I got involved with SharePoint with probably towards the tail end of SharePoint 2003. But really it was 2007 where I really saw that Microsoft have got something here. They've got a real product here that's got legs, that people can build real document management systems on top of, real workflow systems. So I sort of jumped on around that time frame. But I think what was lacking then is people were used to rich desktop applications that provided real rich functionality and felt integrated, like they could feel it, touch it on their desktops. SharePoint came along and it was giving us a lot of the functionality that the users were after. And from a business point of view, you really wanted your users to use this centralized system that it had a lot of centralized business benefits, but to the user, there was this bit of a disconnect between these rich desktop applications and this new browser-based application. It just didn't quite feel right to a lot of users that I've got to go out to a web browser to try and get this functionality, and just didn't feel as connected. So that was the angle that I really started getting involved with SharePoint. And the way that I found that really resonated with users and got that user adoption was to bring SharePoint into the applications that they were already working inside of. So this was add-ins into Outlook, Word, Excel, PowerPoint. Also did some integrations into things like Adobe, because a lot of users were using Adobe when you step outside the Microsoft stack as well. And then integrations onto the Windows desktop and things like that. So I did a lot of add-in development. So as far as that Office development side of things goes, it was really add-ins inside of these applications.
I was thinking about when Satya Nadella became CEO. So the first conference he keynoted was the partner conference, which is now Microsoft Inspire, which happens every July. It's now for, I guess, the next 4 or 5 years will be down in Las Vegas. So always love visiting Las Vegas in July. But one of the things that he talked about that was this user focused design development. I think that touches on the point you made. Is he said, Microsoft, we focus so much on developing features or products over certain areas, but Microsoft, and I'll paraphrase here, but Microsoft is failing to look at end to end what the customer was trying to accomplish, where Microsoft may have filled key workloads within that were very important. And you think about that, like SharePoint for that intranet, for that document collaboration, Exchange and email, that side of it, even the other workloads in Office, Microsoft 365 of, Yammer, of Teams and Skype and for communications and all those different pieces. But they were these separate pieces, and there were some light integrations between those. He says, our goal is to develop, again, paraphrasing, our goal is to develop like the best software that's out there, but where we don't have the best solutions or any solutions, we will partner and integrate for that, even with, competitors. And so it was this looking at it as this end-to-end solution. I thought that was, it was such a departure from the old, Microsoft, and it fits right into, Microsoft's embrace of open source and kind of these other technologies to move towards and, build with whatever tools, whatever platform you're used to, and supporting a lot of the JavaScript, the other languages and other development methodologies, which was, fantastic, which has, I think, helped with, Microsoft's continued growth. And people have now turning back and looking again at Microsoft for where it's strong, because they're now supporting these other ways of doing things. But it's great to go in there and see now when you have a new feature launch that right away you see all these competitive solutions, competitors to SharePoint being integrated, have connectors, have automation and stuff built into that, because Microsoft recognizes, hey, we need to support our customers wherever they're working, however they're working, whether or not they're using the complete Microsoft stack.
Yeah, it's certainly a different Microsoft to what we saw a decade ago, and it's definitely refreshing to see that. And I think you're right. It really has hit refresh on Microsoft, and it's changing the opinions that people have of Microsoft as being that corporate focused sort of company that it once was, to now being a lot more approachable and a lot more flexible in the tools that you can use. And I think that integration point is that is something that I'm seeing as well, is that not only is Microsoft opening itself up to connectors into third-party systems, but I think the real pivot point was when they got to a critical mass in Office 365, and those individual workloads that you talked about, which historically Microsoft had individual on-premises server products. So you had your Exchange server, you had your SharePoint server, you had your Skype for Business server. You had all these individual products, but when they were an on-premises offering, Microsoft had no control over what mix of those that you had. Like, did you just have Exchange, or did you have Exchange and SharePoint? Did you have a fast server for your search? Whereas now we fast forward and we're into Office 365. Microsoft actually has control, and they know what servers are available within your tenancy. They have control of them. They know exactly what versions that are there. So Microsoft have been able to start developing those integrations. So once we saw the services arrive and the workloads arrive in Office 365, they did a little bit of work, well, actually a lot of work to do with user identity, so they could have a consistent user identity across those workloads. Once we got to there, we're now seeing that Microsoft's really leveraging this integration between those workloads. So you can be working on a Word document and you have Yammer conversations sitting side by side with it. It's those sort of end user productivity things that we're now seeing Microsoft are doing out of the box with Office 365, as well as extending it into the partner community. And I think that's where the real usability stuff comes into play, is when you're taking discrete offerings, which are all on their own right, great for their focused purpose, when you can actually bring those together to get that end-to-end solution to the user. That's the gold for the user. You're really making someone's life a lot easier when you're bringing them together in a seamless way so that they can just do a job from start to finish using the best tools for the job.
Yeah, so you working for an ISV and developing a solution. As you know, there's between ISV solutions, which sometimes fill in a gap, which the product team, which Microsoft may come in later and say, hey, it makes sense to kind of do what, like, these ISVs have gone and developed and been very successful, but it really makes sense that these features be native within the platform and may go and expand. That's kind of one of those, I'm going to say, risks or dangers. Those are the wrong words to use, but just the realities of building solutions as an ISV against a platform like SharePoint or Office 365. But you have the same issue with going and building customized solutions, even as a business applications, as an end user, as a power user, as an admin within that environment, to go and build things to fill a need, which then Microsoft may go and build other native capability because they see this. I mean, workflow is a great example of that, where they saw the rise of that and the success of these, and I'll even say migration vendors. I was in that space working for a couple ISVs with migration software. Is that they said there, to some degree, there needs to be this capability that is a native to the application. Now, obviously, Microsoft in those different areas, you are not going to be able to move as quickly as some of the ISVs. But I mean, you as an CTO for an ISV, I mean, so how do you approach that, your product development, to stay ahead of that and to kind of innovate, and where do you to look to go to develop? Because I've heard this concern from a lot of people, like, how do you go and develop? How much do you share and communicate with Microsoft about what they're doing, so that they don't just go and steal what we're doing, kind of thing? That they are not actually stealing, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things in that. I guess first of all, ISVs are a lot more nimble than what Microsoft is going to be able to be, and we're close in a lot of areas. We're close to the customers, and we're hearing exactly what the pain points are. I think first of all, the mindset that I have isn't so much about the technology and the gap that you're actually filling. It's more high level than that. And sort of, I come back to my mindset is always about, how do I make things easier for the end user? Now, that's going to change over time, and that's not dependent on one piece of technology. I actually see it as a good thing that Microsoft finds the best bits of the partner community, the ISVs, that should be baked into the product, and they actually build on top of that. What that means is that as an ISV, I can now help the user in a higher level, rather than actually having to do the base integrations. Microsoft's doing that for us, and it's getting that out there. Now everyone can benefit, and they've got that base level. Now we can be doing something more intelligent on top of that. So, but by having a mindset that I want to make the end user's life easier, or I want to deliver better productivity, or better adoption or better collaboration, by having that high level mindset, you're not just thinking my product fits XYZ need. Because yes, XYZ need will be filled, and hopefully it's filled natively, and people can get that included in their licensing, and the world's a better place for it. So I think, from I guess being an ISV, I think having a mindset of what you're trying to achieve and what you're trying to deliver, what value you're trying to deliver at a business level, and keeping your focus on that, not necessarily on exactly what your technology is doing today. And the rate of change that we're seeing at the moment, some doors may close as far as opportunities come, but it's also opening up a lot of doors as we're iterating and as we're moving along quickly. And Microsoft seems to be more and more moving towards a minimum viable product sort of model, where they'll put something out there that maybe is not 100% fully baked, or it's got a minimum set of features to make it usable in some way, shape, or form. But that opens up a lot of doors for ISVs to be building, functionality on top of it, and delivering real business value as soon as Microsoft launches a baseline product. And so I don't think we've ever been in a time where there is more opportunities for ISVs to be building solutions on top, to be innovating, and delivering real business value.
Yeah, I was just going to kind of comment that, I think no matter how much Microsoft says, hey, this is a beta or this is an MVP around this, and we're looking for feedback, and they just, I think that is a newer model for Microsoft the last, a couple of years, and quite a few people. There are quite a few MVPs that have not quite picked up on that aspect, that, hey, this is this new model, they iterate very quickly, because Microsoft is going in and responding very quickly to a lot of those issues. And I'd say again and again, even those that are watching this that are, just Microsoft customers, if you have feedback, if you have specific business requirements that are not being met by a new product or new service that Microsoft has out there, that might be this first, second, or third iteration, you do need to provide that feedback directly to Microsoft through two key places are the Microsoft tech community, where a lot of that conversation happens, and the product and marketing teams around each of those products and services are there daily. It's part of their measurements to participate in the community. And the other one being, of course, user voice. So go and do a research to see if your specific request, that item, your requirement, if it's not in user voice, add it. And then there's the best practice of always, once you go and add something new to user voice, do the research, find out if it's already there. If it's not there and it's a requirement, add it to user voice, then go and take that link over to Microsoft Tech Community, publish it there, invite people to go vote it up. And when it receives like 10 votes, Microsoft will go and respond. They will review, I think it's even as few as like 5 votes they'll look at. I mean, it's, crazy low for them to be able to review that. But Microsoft needs that feedback. So it's not enough to sit here and opine that, hey, it's missing, lacking this critical feature. Share the feedback around that. It may already be in the product plan, the product roadmap, or Microsoft may not be aware of it, and you need to let them know. Yeah. But so I was going to ask you, Cameron, so I mean, I know there's a lot of programs and things that are out there. I mean, how often are you connecting and talking with Microsoft? I mean, what are the different programs you guys are involved with as an ISV?
That's interesting to say. Microsoft is a company and an organization that restructures itself fairly regularly. I am still trying to figure out and still discovering more programs that I should be on or could be on, yep. Both personally and as an organization. There's definitely having different competencies as a company, I guess, is the starting point. As an ISV, there's silver and gold competencies that you can get as a company, and that will connect you up with Microsoft. There's obviously the opportunity to get in contact with local resources from a Microsoft point of view. We are connected with like the technical Microsoft team here in Australia. I have calls every 3 weeks with our sprint cycle with one of the local engineering resources here, which has been an awesome help, and that sort of helps redirect us internally within Microsoft with the best contacts. A recently new initiative within Microsoft has been for the product teams to hold regular community calls. I also find that they're a great way to hear directly from the product teams within Microsoft. What's new, what's happening, and what people are working on in those different areas. That one, probably because we are based in Australia and the time zone overlap is not great with the US, they're quite hard to join into for us. But I would say if you're in the US, then they would be one of the primary places I would go. If there's certain product streams that you're interested in, then I would be getting those in your calendar and joining in, because they're interactive as well. And I think that's something that works well from both sides. I think Microsoft is after that feedback. Like you say, they're launching products, they're iterating quickly, and they're wanting feedback. Now, those community calls are really good in that making the connections with community, and they are really listening. So some of those community calls, depending on how many people are on them, sometimes people will actually be speaking, like it's just someone that's joined.
Yeah, so they're actually going through on a specific topic or walking through a new feature, that kind of thing. Right.
Yeah, doing the demos and things like that to show you how a new feature works. But if there's a small number of people on the call, they will actually open up the microphones, and you could just be joining in from your lounge room, joining in from your desk at work, and you can physically ask the questions and they'll be answering in real time. If there's a few more callers on there, it'll be more the chat-based window, but they will actually moderate the chat that's coming through and answer those questions if they can there and then in the community calls. But I find those as a really valuable way to stay connected with the product teams.
Yeah, it's they have gotten a lot better. I know that it used to be like they would. It was really difficult to get any of them on calls, and there was once or twice a year around certain workloads or even areas like they would have these, I don't know what you call them, like almost like product councils, and people would go to Redmond and sit around from all these different, a lot of times competing ISVs, but around a specific workload, and then talk through, here's what's going on, this is what's happening on the engineering side. And that's a lot of effort to go and do, where if you're having more regular discussions, then it decreases the need to have this brain dump, twice a year around these areas, because everybody is, and honestly, in the era of evergreen, technology, where it's not a 3-4 year cycle to develop, but it's, releases that are happening at a regular clip, at least monthly, that you need to have these shorter calls, but with people around these focused topics on a more frequent nature. So I know that there's a number of other, different groups that are invite only. And so depending on what you're doing, where there's, some of them are customer, large enterprise customer, or small to mid-sized customer based, like product councils. The best thing to do, for those that are watching and you want to get more involved, at whether you're customer or ISV or consulting, these different areas, there are generally groups, but get in touch with your product and the marketing team with each of the products or workloads, and ask what's out there that's available that you could get an invite to participate, because there's all sorts of stuff going on.
Yeah, I don't think there's any shortage of them. The programs keep coming up. I mean, in the Office space itself, there are certainly tap programs to be able to get on, which you get to see new features that are coming out in Office 365 before a lot of other people do. There's sort of NDA programs around that as well.
Windows, like Windows Insiders, there's, is another one. You have a lot of those kind of insiders groups as well that you can go and join. So yeah, there's a lot of things which are public and or invite only. And then of course, if you're doing things with Office 365, to be on that, that first release for your tenant, or setting up a test, tenant, so that you can have that on first release and be aware of new features, as it goes live in your area. A lot of different options. I know that Microsoft is trying to be flexible in how they do that. But well, Cameron, hey, I appreciate your time. How can people want to find out more about you, get in touch with you? What's the best way to reach you?
Sure. I'm on Twitter, just Cameron Dwyer. I'm guessing all this stuff will be in the blog that accompanies this afterwards. So you can find me Cameron Dwyer. I'm on Twitter. I try to blog fairly regularly at CameronDwyer.wordpress.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. Shoot a message off to me. I'm always happy to answer questions and help people out wherever I can. I do pop up at conferences. As I say, I'll be at Ignite in a couple of months' time. Hopefully, I'll make it over to the European SharePoint Conference. Hopefully, I'll get to actually meet you face to face in a few weeks' time down at Digital Workplace Conference down in Melbourne.
I head out a week from, today's Thursday, right? Yeah, a week from today. So I start my very long journey down there. I'm actually going to go spend a couple days in Hobart, so in Tasmania. So yeah, I've never been down there, so I'm going to go. I was thinking about even going and doing either kayaking or fishing. So do a tourism fishing expedition.
Fantastic. It is like the wilderness down there is, it's pretty awesome. You're hanging off the bottom of the world. It is winter time, so I would be wearing a wetsuit if you're going kayaking. But no, it's a beautiful part of the world down there. Absolutely beautiful part of the world.
Yeah, looking forward to it. So it's been a few years since I've been down to I'll be in Melbourne, but I'll be on my way home. We'll stop off for about an hour and a half in Sydney on my way through. Well, Cameron, I hope to see you down at that Digital Workplace Conference, and thanks a lot for participating in the MBB Buzz Chat today, and we'll talk to you soon.
Awesome. It's great chatting to you, Christian.